So, good morning to all of you again. As you know, Vedisha is a platform for celebrating women-led development in architecture, art, design, engineering, and construction. Ved is about documenting the progression of women in design. 2022 is the seventh year for Vedisha and fifth year for Vedisha Awards, which is which is going to happen at New Delhi from 2nd to 4th of September 2022. Vidisha is celebrating International Women's Day today, and I'm glad to tell you that our first speaker is Pratima Joshi. She is also one of the awardees of Vedisha Special Contribution Award in 2018. Pratima is one of the few visionaries who recognize the issues around provision of safe access to basic services such as water, sanitation, social housing, waste management over 2 decades, even before today's focus on urban development and planning. She has established Shelter Associates in 1993, a recipient of Aga Khan Scholarship and an expert in building design for developing countries. Through a master's in architecture from London, Pratima is the only Indian to receive Google Earth Hero Award, identified by BBC as a leading slum architect of India, and recognized as a social entrepreneur by Ashoka Fellowship. The list can go on. But one thing I can say is that Pratima Joshi has successfully empowered communities and has elevated quality of life for the urban poor in India. So let's know more from the social entrepreneur and architect, Pratima Joshi, about her journey, milestone, current activities, vision for the future, and of course, messages for those of you who'd like to take this path for social entrepreneurship and community development. So over to you, Pratima ji, and I'm so happy to welcome you again. It's been lovely meeting you in Vedisha, and I'm looking forward to see you in New Delhi in September in the Vedisha Grand Ceremony. So over to you, and you share your journey, the milestones, your how the difficulties, challenges if you're faced in through your journey, the kind of the work that you are doing currently. I know you are adding technology to your work right now, which is so amazing and empowering, and also share your messages for those who want to take the very, very important path that you have set. Over to you, Pratima ji.
Thank you so much, Vertica. It's wonderful to start my day with you. I think you are a great inspiration. The way you have, the way Asia has unfolded in the last 7 years, the journey has been amazing, and more power to you too.
Thanks.
So having said that, let me start by saying that as an architect who graduated from Anna University in 1986, I really had no clue I would be getting into something so empowering for my own self in the years to come. But somewhere the seeds of working in social development was kind of it kind of germinated there. I would say the 5 years of architecture course that I did in Chennai, we had marvelous teachers teaching us, and one of them stood apart from the rest. He was an English architect, Michael Slingsby, who, apart from teaching, was also looking at housing for the poor in Chennai Municipal Corporation. And I had the opportunity of visiting a few of his sites, which gave me a very different perspective that, as an architect, we hardly ever think about the have-nots in the city because we are so focused on the haves. And those constitute barely 15% maybe of the population who can hire an architect. Somewhere, that thought crept in. And then when I did a master's in London at the Bartlett School of Architecture and Planning, I did it in a specialized course called Building Design for Developing Countries. And this, thought of working in the development sector really became very strong. And that was my turning point, because we had marvelous architects, like John Turner and all coming and teaching us on that course. People who have worked hands-on, with urban development in slum communities, and who had rich experiences to share. So much so that by the time I finished my course in London, which was in 87, I was very clear that I would steer clear of commercial architecture and I would really dedicate myself to the development sector. having made that decision, of course, I came back to India, I got married, moved to Pune, and started working with Christopher Benninger. So for 4 years, I was with Center for Development Studies and Activities, where I made very good friends who were architects. And the three of us decided, since it was a shared passion, that we must start our own journey now, and that's how Shelter Associates was born. So our vision was to try and give communities a better quality of life, move them towards more equitable distribution of resources, which often are lacking. Just to give you an example of Pune city, where we started our journey, 40% of Pune's population live in slums, but they occupy less than 5% of the total land that's available. So we are really talking of people being packed in densities, being deprived of basic things like water and sanitation, which you and I take for granted. So as architects, when we started this journey, we didn't expect it to be easy. It was very challenging, but we were prepared to rise that challenge, because I think when you're passionate about something and when you really want to make something happen, you will be at it. And the challenge, of course, came from all quarters. Here we were talking about communities who they're not a homogeneous group. There are several layers of control even within communities. There are several groups, there are several political affiliations. So, trying to get the most vulnerable in the slum communities, giving them a voice, getting them to come out is also a huge challenge. At the same time, working with the elected representatives, who traditionally think that this is their forte, to be delivering services. And why should architects be meddling? I mean, they initially thought that we were meddling with what they should be doing. And of course, the government is another challenge, the administration, because there are so many different perspectives people have who are working in the government regarding the poor, right from, being their chores and their leeches and they're sucking, the city, and they're an eyesore and whatnot. There were very few who really wanted to make a difference in the lives of the poor. So we were up against them too. So I think even despite all that, it was interesting. But one of the major challenges working on the ground was the fact that there was no data about the poor. So how do you work with people? How do you work with communities if you don't know much about them and if nobody has that kind of data? The data challenge was something that we realized almost at the outset of our journey in '94. So the first thing, I think in the late 90s, GIS softwares, computers, all this was a bit alien. In the municipal corporation, there was just one computer, and that was in the buildings department, and God knows how many people even looked at it. So this was the time when we said, let us leverage technology. Why? Because when you talk of poor, you're not talking about a few hundred people, you're talking about quite a few thousand families, residing in degraded areas. And if you need to manage that kind of data, then you need technology. So very early on, we realized the value of having technology, leveraging technology. And so the first technology that we leveraged was the GIS technology. Our journey started in the late 90s. Our technology journey has been over 2 decades. And over these decades, we have upgraded our skills. We started using Google Earth when that was published. Then when mobile Android apps became available, we started, shifting from paper-based surveys to Android, based surveys. And now we are using open source. All our technology is open source, and we've also published data on our website. So the data journey has been exciting. Exciting also because we were sort of swimming against the tide. When nobody wanted us to even say GIS, we were saying GIS. When nobody wanted to work on computers, nobody wanted computerized data, especially in governance, we're saying, no, you must start looking at technology. But together with using technology and doing data, what made a difference and what made governments sit up and take notice, I think, was the fact that we started showing results on the ground. So very early on, we started showing, when you have data, how it becomes a great planning tool for planning well in advance, the development of your slums. For instance, in Pune city, when we had data, and what came as a shock, and I'm talking about in the early 2000s, more than 75% of Pune's slum population had water connections in their homes. And there were so many water stand posts in slums which were just, wasting water because somebody has left the tap open or the tap could not be shut. And a precious resource like water was getting wasted. So when we showed that data to the government, we said, you need to do something about this because water is so precious. They started taking note, and many of these community water staff, they started making sure that they removed them wherever it was not necessary. And of course, today we have a situation where over 90% of Pune slum dwellers have water connection in their house. And whichever cities we worked in 7 cities of Maharashtra, we've been capturing data and making it available to the Mahapalika. We did 3 very successful housing projects. The first one was very interesting, where we got the people to develop building skills and they actually built their houses. I think that was a landmark project in 96, 97. The second was again in Pune. The first one was also in Pune. Second one in Pune was also a relocation project where people willingly relocated 8 kilometers away from where they were living. And the third was a citywide rehabilitation project where we took the entire city of Sangli, Miraj, and Kupad and designed a citywide housing program for about 3,500 families. And part of it got built. Now, all this was data driven. All this, gave major insights into what were the issues, what needed to be done, how you could use land, which is a very precious resource, optimally. So these were great learnings for the government also, because I remember in Sangli when we laid out all the data, spatially, visually on the Google Earth, some of the councillors said, "Ma'am, we've never seen our data presented like this. For the first time, we see data is coming alive." To me, that was very important, because once they realized that there were so many possibilities that come up when you have this kind of data, more and more people engaged with us. So I feel really happy that whatever project we've done to date, we've managed to engage all the stakeholders and bring them onto a common platform. And here, actually, I would like to say that being architects does help. We are not in the social work mold, or we are not perceived. I think there's a perception problem. We're not perceived as activists who are going to be up against arms with the government. So this image we don't have. We come from a very neutral, background, where the communities are also willing to engage with us, and the government is also willing to engage with us, because we are bringing hard facts on the table, and what it ends up being is more or less a win-win situation for everyone. So I think as architects, we should really consider working in the development sector, because you actually are perceived to be neutral players, which makes brings in a lot of comfort. As it is, data brings in a lot of clarity and transparency. But when architects are presenting it, and I think one of the skills that architects have, and which is honed over the 5-year architectural course that we go through, is we become good at presenting our work, right? I mean, I don't think presentation is so difficult. So whether it's the communities or whether it's the government, I think we are able to lay or put forward a project very convincingly. And these are, I think, capacities that we need to really optimally leverage. And architects have that edge. The other project that has been a landmark project in our journey, and which I must talk about, is the sanitation work that we've been doing. We have been working in the sanitation space for nearly 2 decades now, but Swachh Bharat Abhiyan gave it a major impetus. So, we have developed this whole model called One Home, One Toilet, because while we were working in the sanitation space, while we did community toilets very early on in our journey, we realized one thing is that there is no substitute for a home toilet. That is the best solution that you can give. And today's Women's Day, we are celebrating Women's Day. If there's something that gives absolute dignity to a woman, then it's having a toilet at home, because one of the things is the kind of indignity that she's subjected to. And there are such horror stories that we've heard from the ground. Women being harassed, women being humiliated, women holding their bladders for 13 hours, sometimes it is stretched because they haven't had access to a safe toilet. Women being scared of eating in the evenings because they are scared of using a toilet in the dark. Often they have to wake their menfolk to take them to very filthy community toilets, which are not even lit in the night. I mean, there are so many horror stories: being pelted, being abused, sometimes being assaulted. I really believe that one home, one toilet has given dignity to so many women and adolescent girls. I feel very happy to share, Vertica, that very recently we crossed the 25,000 toilet milestone, where we've made 25,000 toilets available across 7 cities of Maharashtra in slum, and all of this was from funding that we raised through corporate social responsibility. There was hardly any government funding in this. And what makes it even more of a pleasure to share this is that it was on a cost sharing basis. It was not something which was a freebie. Here we engaged with the municipal corporations in these 7 cities who leveraged our data to lay drainage networks. So the city invested in laying new drainage networks in slums wherever it was possible. We leveraged the CSR funding and gave free material to the doorsteps of the families who were willing to build a toilet, and the families built it at their own cost. So even financially, there was a buy-in from the community. So it was a very dignified kind of a transaction between all the stakeholders. And I have to share this, that people keep their toilets really clean. They upgrade them. They look after them very well, because it is something that is in their house, which is their responsibility, and they take good care of it. I mean, we've built toilets, and our first one home, one toilet was implemented in 2005 in the city of Sangli. When we visited, even today, we find people are looking after it very well. So dignity is something that it brings to everyone, not just women, even to the young children. They don't like sitting out in the open. And the very old, who find it so difficult to walk to a community toilet and queue up. So I find that the sanitation program has been, fantastic in these 5, 6 cities where we've implemented it. We've had full cooperation of all the stakeholders in making this happen. So I would give credit to the urban local bodies as well as to the communities for taking it up. And I must say that one of the major strengths of shelter, apart from data, has been our community mobilization. We engage all the people in the slum communities, right from children to the elderly, to the adolescents, to women, men, everybody. And we do so many games. We have so many activities with them that they really enjoy the process that leads to a home toilet eventually for them. So there has been a lot of that work happening. And of course, then we were hit by the pandemic. The pandemic has hit the poor very hard, because one of the things that was staring at them was loss of livelihoods in several families. But even a bigger fear was, the fact that they had to use community facilities in many places, which were like hotspots for catching the virus. And so sanitation became even a bigger need during the pandemic. And I'm very thankful to my entire team in Shelter Associates. Through the pandemic, through all the 3 waves, we have worked every day on the ground. All our people have been frontline warriors, and they have tried to make sanitation available, safe sanitation, even community sanitation. We try to put pedal push, elbow operated hand wash system, so that people minimize touching anything, even if they had to use common facilities. So this is a sort of a brief glimpse of our journey. Vertica, I'm happy to take any more questions that you may have.
I know the kind of the work that you have done and you are doing. This is something that I can keep listening and learning from it. It's so inspiring, Pratima ji. At the same time, I would like to know about the award that you got, that is about Google Earth Hero Award. I think that was for the slum, the digital mapping of slum dwellings. So please, could you share something about that?
Yes, certainly. So Google Earth was making a series under the Google Earth Hero series. They were looking at people or organizations or even governments who were leveraging Google Earth for a social cause. So actually, they have done a series of these films, very short films on people and their their work using Google Earth. And in India, we were the only ones who were chosen because we use Google Earth as our base map for inputting all our data. So even if you're mapping a slum settlement, we go with the Google Earth image on the ground, and we update that. Over that, we actually sort of fine tune the actual houses on the map, come back, digitize it, and we connect all that data using Google Earth as a base map. And because we've had such a good base map, we have been able to use this very effectively and efficiently across cities to get the attention of the communities as well as the government. Just to give you a small example, when we did the citywide housing project in Sangli, Miraj, we were quite astounded that out of 75 slums that were in Sangli, 35 had to move. Why? Because they were on reservation land, or they were hugging roads which were going to be widened at some point. Now, 35 is a big number. And we planned an entire design strategy where people will not have to move more than 2 to 3 kilometers from where they were staying, simply because we didn't want them to get uprooted from their livelihoods and the social amenities like school, colleges, whatever they were using, and they could continue their way of life without too much disturbance. But the receiving pockets were also slums, which were on government land and which were tenable, and which could be redeveloped to a slightly higher density so that you not only rehabilitate the people who are living there, but you create an extra housing stock. So in effect, it meant that people would need to absorb communities who were in their vicinity on their own piece of land. And there was so much resistance both to moving and to receiving. But when we went with Google Earth, when we showed them, what it would mean. I mean, people who were moving were very scared to move. They said, what will happen to our jobs? What will happen to our schools? Where will our children go? This and that. So when we showed them, they say, you're just moving here. This is all that you're moving. You're just barely moving 2 kilometers. Is that going to make a huge difference to your living? But just think of the fact that you're going to have a secure tenure and nobody's ever going to be able to take you out of that house forever. So, looking at that spatial data, looking at that map, people said, well, that is not so bad. Yes, I think we can consider it. It was a slightly slow process, but I think that kind of technology aided decision making, and people finally, decided that, yes, it's okay to move. So this is just one of the examples that we're giving. But what we're doing with Google right now is equally exciting because, you're living in Delhi, and so many of us know that in large cities, slums are not tiny, they're huge. You have 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 families living in one settlement, and they just share one address. So even postal services, are normally delivered to a common place where people go and collect it, because it's absolutely impossible to give it door to door because there's no way to navigate. Nobody has a digital address. So when Google launched Plus Codes, which is a digital address based on the lat-long position of the house or the hut, we were very quick to partner with them. And wherever we work, like in the city of Kolhapur, which is a tier 2 city in Maharashtra, we have given this addressing system to every house in every slum. So it's 100% covered. Now, this is navigable on Google Map. And you and I use Google Map just about every day if we have to reach a place. Now you can reach the doorstep of any hut using their alphanumeric address. And I think that is the kind of power that data and technology gives you, which can be empowering for both. Now, for the communities, it's empowering because now they are able to leverage online services like you and I do, Amazon, Swiggy. I was pleasantly surprised because I remember the first time I went into the slum communities when we were testing out Plus Code, we were not sure whether people will be willing to, experiment with this. And when I talked about addressing and how Google Map can be used to come to their house, I was amazed. They said, huh, madam, we will be able to also get the person to deliver from Amazon at our doorstep. And I never expected that kind of an answer from anyone. But of course, they were very quick to point out that even emergency services, sometimes you need to call an ambulance. At least it will come to the nearest point, even if it can't come to our doorstep. It'll be just so much easier. There's a LPG cylinder that you require every month or every 2 months, and that can be delivered to their doorstep instead of them going to the edge of the settlement. So they're just manifold benefits to the community. But even for the government, the ward office, for instance, if there's so many manholes in a huge settlement, if there's one particular one which is overflowing, or there are like several community toilets in a large settlement, which one has a broken door or a broken pan? If you just put the slush code, the government person can go directly there and attend to it. It just makes governance planning so much easier when you have these kind of digital addressing systems in place. So this is where we are now getting into a very exciting phase where we feel this kind of data, digital addressing can be leveraged across sectors. It doesn't have to be just water sanitation. It can be livelihoods, it can be education, it can be health, anything. So we're looking forward to exciting times with data, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Pratima ji, this initiative, I think this can be the beginning for many, many more things. Enabling the communities with. So, what is your message for the younger generation, and for anybody, in fact, who'd like to contribute to these kind of causes? Maybe while they are doing their carrying on their professional work.
So I was at a College of Architecture yesterday. They invited me a day in advance for Women's Day, and I was just talking to the young architects who would be graduating out now, maybe in a year or two or whatever. And I was just telling them that as young professionals, when you step out, apart from the regular avenues that you choose to take, why don't you even consider an option of working in the development sector? Because at the end of the day, there are two Indias, the way I see it. You have women living in communities who don't have a voice. For them, getting an equal status in their family, a voice, being able to express themselves is even today not a great possibility. But I was just telling the students, you're not being discriminated against your gender when you're in college. You're being judged by the talent, by the skills that you put on the table. The fact that we're all studying in such good colleges, we are privileged. We are a very privileged lot. And if we can consider returning those privileges manifold times back to the society, which truly requires our services and needs to be empowered. When I work with community women and I see a transformation that is happening over a period of time, it gives me such happiness and joy to see a woman who was in a parda maybe 2 years ago, today is going out there and trying to reach out to the other women in her community, trying to encourage them to take a toilet or whatever we arranged with at that time. That is true empowerment, and we are in a very unenviable position to be able to do that. We are actually sitting at in history also. I think we are enjoying the best times. We have so much of luxury in terms of what technology is affording and giving us. We have time to think. We have time to give back. There's just no end to what you can do. So choose carefully. This is a message that I would like to give every professional, that make wise choices, because what you choose now would be a defining moment in your life, in your future life. And all of us know that maximum hours of our wakeful moments are spent at the place of work. And if that is not satisfying, it is not something that you feel passionate about, you find that it starts impacting your life adversely at all ends. So a professional satisfaction is absolutely a must. And if there's some way you can give back to society, please make those kind of choices, because I'm sure you'll never regret it. The 30 years that I have put in this sector, there's not a single day that I regretted. and there's not a single day that I don't look forward to coming to my place of work. So I would like to give that message to all the young aspiring architects and even people from other fields.
Yes, of course. So, Pratima ji, what is your message for Wade Asia? We have been connected since so long. It's so beautiful to be
I don't
in touch
think
with
I need
you.
to give any message to you, Vertica. You are an embodiment of an empowered woman. You're doing fabulous work. I will just say more power to Wade Asia. And I want your platform to connect as many women as possible, in the years to come, so that women flower, on this platform. Women feel inspired to do, a lot of great good work. And there is just so much out there, waiting for women to do. I really wish you all the best and many, many years of Wade Asia in future, successful years.
Thank you so
Power
much.
to you, Vertica.
Thank you so much, Pratima ji. So it was lovely talking to you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the month of September, 2nd to 4th
Certainly.
in New Delhi.
Certainly.
Okay?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Vertica. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.